We are back, and it looks like we are getting ready to go for match number one. We can finally kick it off. And honestly, Sol, for me, due to one thing or another, I've not cast Hearthstone for quite a while now, and I honestly cannot wait. It's been paining me inside that I've not cast Hearthstone for a long time, so I'm looking forward to getting into it. But what are you looking forward to the most now? Maybe we can talk a little bit about any specific decks, any crazy lineups. What do you want to see from the players today?
Um, in terms of the decks that I've been enjoying the most, I've really been enjoying Spell Druid. I've actually been enjoying Galakron Rogue quite a lot, which
Jeez.
doesn't seem to be a thing that too many other people have a lot of faith in. And I do actually really enjoy the OTK version of Demon Hunter, and I think the matchups that it has are extremely interesting, even if it is maybe still a little too high on the power level front. So those are the big decks for me that I'll be really excited to watch. But I'm personally just, any of the unique decks that we see, like, watching Staz's Totem Shaman, even though it failed miserably in APAC just before us, it's still someone with a unique idea of a way to come into this fresh meta. So from that extent, like, Silvername brought Spell Mage. Is that going to work out for him over the course of the week? We'll see.
Yeah, and something we have to bear in mind is a lot of these matches we could see over the weekend could well be rematches from the Swiss portion of the tournament. So Spellmage, we've got our answer. It's at least on something because he made top 8. Stacked field, and I think it was mentioned earlier on by Derek and Gia, is a lot of the players have been saying how insane the Swiss tournaments have been because every single player is fantastic. Well, speaking of fantastic players, we get to intro a fellow UK player here, BoarControl, who is extremely well known now, bringing the Demon Hunter Highlander Rogue and the No Hands Warrior. We can definitely talk about Demon Hunter and the Warrior in a little bit, but did you expect Highlander Rogue? Because this was a bit of a surprise for me, honestly.
Yeah, even for me saying that I actually think Rogue is pretty strong right now. I have been playing 2-ofs Rogue. Essentially just old Galakron Rogue with enough of the stealth package to make the draw 2 card work.
Right.
That's all I want. No other nonsense. I'm not buffing them up or anything, just in order to draw more cards and more consistently do Galakron things. So Highlander Rogue wasn't really something that was on my radar. It's not something that I've had a huge amount of time to test. But certainly, again, another exciting off-the-wall deck that we'll have to see if it performs for a player. And as we mentioned, coming into this, Boar won the Swiss. So it does seem, up until this point at least, that Highlander Rogue has been doing some work for him.
Yeah, and in terms of the Demon Hunter, he is bringing just the Gedem Demon Hunter, right? Or Tempo Demon Hunter, which seems more like Face Hunter to me. But he is going to be bringing that one. We'll get into that in just a second. Whereas we see his opponent Zhym is also bringing the No Hands Warrior, but also going for that Spell Druid here, or the Token Druid, along with the combo version of Demon Hunter. So I'd say combo Demon Hunter feels like it is edging towards, and I'm going to say it, Patron Warrior-esque play of
Raven, come on.
I had to. But in terms of, I just mean, the potential of the deck in any given game is very, very high, but you've got to do it, is my point overall, right? You've got to know how far you can push the deck. You've got to know when and how you can go off with a combo and how much damage you can even achieve, what boards you can clear, and so on. So it does require a lot of setup, but do you believe it is actually generally more powerful than just Tempo Demon Hunter?
I do not know. It's rare that I sit on the fence.
I was going to say, come on, Sol, come on.
I know. I like to have a hot take. I think they are enormously powerful. And you've seen that recently. I think Zixo and Orange were just like snatching rank 1 back and forth from each other. One of them was playing the aggro version. One of them was playing the OTK spell version. So you can see that they're both immensely powerful. And I think it might just be a matter of they're both incredibly good. Maybe there's like 0.5% in terms of overall power level across all matchups between two decks. I don't know which way that falls.
Okay, well, no time like the present to find out. Let's get into it. We've got BoarControl on the top, on the No Hands Warrior, and Zhym on the bottom on this Demon Hunter, which is the combo version. So he'll be looking to try and hold off a little bit and start wreaking havoc with some big damage. But let's talk about the mulligan. Sol, BoarControl seems like he's in pain over this one.
Yeah, I was more focused on Zhym's initially because, of course, Outcast new mechanic makes mulligans very, very interesting. He is risking this left-hand card really messing with his hand Because if a left-hand card appears here that isn't just a playable early on in the game, then Consume Magic won't slide to the left and Outcast, and then Skull of Gul'dan won't slide to the left and Outcast by turn 6 either anyway. But I think this is still the mulligan. You can see he gets the perfect result with the I-Beam coming off the top there. Nice cheap card and some early removal that he can use to stop BoarControl's board state snowballing early on.
I will say, though, for me on that mulligan, although of course you have to be careful with how you mulligan, and we'll be talking a lot about Demon Hunter mulligan, you know, as we go in throughout the day and the weeks, but for me, it was really just two inner demons and a Kel'Thas that is the massive problem, because even a Metamorphosis, well, you play it turn 5.
Play on 5.
And it's gone. So really just 3 cards. I do like the mulligan because the payoff now, if you look, is a pretty nice hand to just set up Skull of Gul'dan. And if you do not know, you're not aware of it, Skull of Gul'dan, if cast as Outcast, not only draws 3 cards, but then reduces the cost by 3, which is where the main power of the deck, and honestly, the main power of Demon Hunter comes from at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with the mulligan. I was just trying to illustrate that there is that risk there. That sometimes your perfect hand just falls apart, but I don't think there's any other way he could have manipulated his hand there to give him better chances of a nice Outcast chain going.
Yeah, and on the top side here for BoarControl on this warrior, there has been some talk of maybe the dormant minions are a lot more powerful than maybe people are playing them as. You know, like they're not putting enough of them or the right ones or them consistently in their decks. But this one is the Imprisoned Vile Fiend, which is a pretty beefy minion to early on, especially when you can coin it out. But it does take those couple of turns to get going.
Yep. Interesting decision from Zhym there, choosing just to silence the egg straight up, not waiting for the Outcast to become active, just using it as a silence to get rid of that egg, which I do like. I have watched No Hands Gamer, the creator of this deck and why it's called No Hands Warrior, playing this deck a great deal. And you can see the respect he gives players when they just sort of fall in to deal with his egg early in the game. Because he immediately thinks, okay, this guy like understands the matchup a little bit. Like, have I played against this guy before? Has he queued into exactly me on ladder up until this point? So I certainly respect Zhym's decision there, just to make sure no nonsense can be happening with that egg.
And also, even just on a bit of a base level, as we talk more about Demon Hunter, is I think a lot of people get too caught up on Outcast. Yes, the cards are fantastic if they have their Outcast active, but
sure,
you still need to play sometimes that aren't Outcast, right? You don't just go, well, I'm never going to silence anything until it goes on the edge, because then you're just going to have a bad time. But we see Immolation or a really nice AoE clear, which is one of the difference cards between the combo and tempo list of Demon Hunter, whereas this is just 2 mana, deal 1 to the board twice, and as you can see, it goes a long way towards helping out some of more of those aggressive openings that Demon Hunter, outside of swinging a lot with the weapon, would struggle to deal with otherwise.
So Boar now, just trying to decide how he wants to develop this turn. You see Blood Boil Brute, I believe is the name of that card, in hand. That is very similar in effect to Motion, if you want to look at... No, hang on, that's not the name of the right... That's not the right name of the card, is it? That's a 1/7 taunt.
It's very similar to that in the fact that it's a Hearthstone card.
Yeah, forget about it. It's discounts for each damaged minion on board, which means you can get it down incredibly cheaply, and this can actually mimic Shaman at times, in that you have the lackey generating from the weapon to be able to sometimes hit evolve lackeys and even have enormous swing turns through it. But just on its own, it is a 6/8 rush, so very often, unless you're trading it into a huge minion, it still leaves behind a big enough threat on board to be a good enough turn, just if you can discount it down to sort of 3 or 4 mana.
Right, and already we are seeing the impact of Wave 1 nerfs of Demon Hunter. If this was pre-nerf, Zhym could have Skull of Gul'dan and then I-beamed for 0 mana. It would have healed him for 3 and killed a minion, right? He cannot, because I-beam now only goes to 1 mana when it is on the Outcast slot, which means that he couldn't have made the turn, which dramatically reduced the power level of that turn from Zhym. So you can just already see even just what you'd consider slightly lesser nerfs having a big impact on these close-knit games.
Yeah, huge difference. It creates a weird interaction now with I-Beam, where if you actually draw it off the Skull of Gul'dan, it costs 0 if it's not outcasted, and then goes to 1 if it is outcasted still, which is correct. That is how it should work, based on the current description of the card. It's just very, very strange to encounter that
weird.
for the first time.
Yeah. But here we go. We do see the Skull of Gul'dan now, and you see the inner demon being reduced down to 5 mana, which is insane. And also, Kel'Thas going down to 3, which is absurd. And Sol, do you want to take us on a descriptive journey of Kel'Thas for us here? Because that is an insane card right now.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You play it and then you win the game.
There you go. Very descriptive. I like it. Not a bit too long-winded for me. Sol could have shortened it just a little bit, but yeah, I like it overall. It's a very, very powerful card. But is BoarControl going to give him the time here, because he's putting on some pressure right now?
So the problem is here, Boar has put on enough pressure that Zhym has had to use up the charges of his lifesteal weapon. If Zhym still had lifesteal equipped right now, then he would basically be free to do whatever he wants next turn, right? Because he had so much healing available to him.
Yeah.
But without that, now he's stuck in this weird like floating position where he has to kill minions before he can go on the offensive and start ripping into demons.
Yeah, and there's already just so much pressure on Mana Burn. A really cool card as well. And there's the key culprit for me. Altruis deals damage for every time a card on the far left or far right is played. It's 1 damage to the board and face. So this means that combined with a ludicrously cheap Kel'Thas, fireworks are going to start flying right now.
22.
Is this just lethal, Sol? Is this just lethal?
He needs 6 damage from Altruis for this to be lethal, which I think he might have. So now he can outcast the Inner Demon for 0. Yes, I think this is lethal.
And welcome to Combo Demon Hunter. Lesson 1. Sometimes you just die.
No, he's a mana short, unless this is his second spell that discounts the Inner Demon. Yeah, he's short.
Oh, short, just. Oh,
yeah. Yep.
Just. But now, can BoarControl come back? Because one thing that, well, another thing No Hands Warrior has going for it is not only its aggressive push, but its sheer armor gain potential because of those armor smiths, and especially the risky skipper. So it means that we saw it previously in some of the Asia Pacific matches that were on just before us, where there was some insane armor gains, which just completely evened out or even won the game for whoever was doing it, because you still have enough juice to keep going, and you kind of end up playing like a removal, like Control Warrior style, which makes the deck very, very intricate to play.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's a big reason why this deck even came to fruition, why No Hands Gamer built it, why he found success with it, climbing for very high legend. Not sure he ever actually hit rank 1, but he was hanging around in top 10 forever playing this deck. A big reason why players have chosen to bring it to this tournament. You really do see the double threat that it has against Demon Hunter, where it can overwhelm them on board early and therefore be aggressive and force them to use resources inefficiently as much as that's possible against Demon Hunter. But then if you are then forced back onto the defensive, you have nutty turns like this one that boards are executing right now to be able to pull yourself out of range of max damage of the combo deck as well.
Yeah, and the scary part here is, though, BoarControl killed one of the high priority targets in the form of the Altruis, but the Kel'Thas is still up, and now the question begins as BoarControl looks like...
Oh, this chain!
Yeah, BoarControl's...
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. He's wincing here as he knows what this deck is capable of, even with Armor Smiths. And honestly, maybe the fact that Altruis died was a good thing for Zhym, because the AoE isn't proccing the Armor Smiths right now. He's just at a flat 23.
The Armor Smiths are still very annoying, though, because he has Immolation Aura in hand, which he might even want to cast this turn to get more card draw, like off his Blood Mage, for example. But again, like Armor Smiths, like, what do you even do about this card if you're Demon Hunter?
Yeah,
it's so
I was just going to say the spell damage would help, but it wouldn't, would it? Because they go off before the Armor Smiths die, even though it one-shots the Armor Smiths. So yeah, it doesn't matter. Zhym is going to gain a lot of health, though, as he got the second Eldrachi Warblades, which means he also isn't dead.
Yes.
It's a pretty close game. 2 decks that can work in very similar fashions, both aggressive, an aggressive burst damage and healing. But it's all going to come down to who gets the edge. But I would say Zhym's kind of, running on fumes now, because this is everything he pretty much has.
Agreed. It doesn't really matter what Zhym's life total is at this point, because board doesn't have to kill him as a win condition anymore. Now that he's gained that much armor, and now Zhym only has 6 cards remaining, he can look at just completely outlasting the damage as a win condition. But this Kel'Thas that is just hanging around on board is proving to be the potential kicker here, because if Zhym can ever manage to attack with that again, suddenly I think he's back in with a pretty good shot.
And the key thing as well to remember is Zhym has not played Metamorphosis yet, which means he has 10 damage extra through one single card that is still in his deck that he has more than enough mana to play. You know, he's not exactly choked for cards right now. Greenskin's going to come down.
He's going to use the skipper to clear up to save himself the 4. Like I said, Boar just really needed to prevent that thing from attacking by any means necessary. So just making sure he can clear it with the AoE. He's back up at 18 now, which, as you mentioned, 10 damage still to come from Metamorphosis. He wants to be getting up towards that 20 level as quick as he possibly can here, I would imagine. And
do you much prefer the armor instead of the Blood Cell Raider there with the weapon buff to put it to 5?
I think so. Like I said, I don't think Boar necessarily has to be super concerned about winning the game here. I know we talk about how playing not to lose is kind of a disaster a lot of the time in Hearthstone, but here I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, it's interesting because I think in that spot personally, I would have took the mindset of, well, if I put a 5/3 on the board, but he kind of has to kill it, right? Because he's gonna die before I need to out armor him. So it really is just two different sides of the same coin in terms of where you see win conditions. But we will see how it goes. BoarControl looking like he's in a pretty fantastic spot right now, honestly. As I believe, you know, off the top of my head, the only real threats are that Metamorphosis, right? Because he's already used Kayn as well. So that's some damage from hand that's already gone. Oh, he has Zephyrus, actually. I forgot. So he can Zephyrus into Tyrion, the age-old. Or he can even Zephyrus into Inner Demon, which the first time I realized that was a thing, hurt.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that Boar really wants to get up towards that 20 as soon as he possibly can, because that's the 10 damage from the Metamorphosis, and then it covers like an Inner Demon or a Pyroblast or whatever else coming off the Zephyrus as well. That's usually your target once the natural Inner Demons of the deck have gone down.
And for me, no real reason why Zhym wouldn't play the Novice. I don't think he can afford to slow play it because he's low on cards. I think he just needs to draw his deck and hope for the best. Oh, is he not gonna... Oh, okay, didn't go for the Zephyrus that turn. So he wants the Metamorphosis now, which he did get. So he can use the mana now for Metamorphosis hero power and try and set up something with a 1-mana hero power into Zephyrus Burst. I'm not sure how he can do that. What does he have anything that'll get him there?
I'm not sure. I don't think so is my answer. The realistic answer is that he's just kind of dead next turn if he doesn't do anything about this board state. Because there's 9 showing right now, and then Boar has the weapon equipped. So there's 12 showing right now, including the weapon, and then Boar has another 6 in hand. So he just has exact lethal right now if Zhym does not address this board state. I don't think Zhym can realistically ever play around that, especially because the South Sea deckhand is a generated card that's adding to that as well. He actually is choosing to do so. Looks like. Interesting.
He's gonna take down the 5/3, which does give him it gives him a little bit more time. So maybe he is thinking of going for a Tyrion instead.
Yeah,
and he wants to outvalue him instead of burst.
That does seem unlikely, but I think the straight-up damage plan was impossible, so I think you would definitely pick unlikely over impossible in that position, so I guess that makes sense. I respect it.
And also as well, to be fair, the damage from BoarControl is, and his deck is very straightforward, isn't it? It's like melee damage to a certain extent, right? There aren't spells that are gonna, he's not playing Mortal Strikes, you know, so if he just drops a Tyrion in the way, maybe that gets him there because BoarControl has to trade into it. Then he takes a backswing from the Ashbringer and so on. So it might never work, but it's probably the best plan Zhym's got, right?
Is this damage connecting face now important? Like, if you imagine your opponent's on Zephyrus Tyrion, which I think you probably can, is it important to get that damage through to face so you're increasing their fatigue clock? Or is it more important to have the weapon available to deal with the Tyrion, potentially?
I think you want it this way round because the deckhand, right?
Sure.
You want the deckhand to be able to charge. So if it is Tyrion, he can remove the shield with the deckhand, save his own health, trade into the Tyrion, and still have the weapon to go face. So I think it's the deckhand is the bit that crosses him over. And you see BoarControl nodding now. He's like, yes, okay, this is the thing I expected, and now Tyrion can die. Oh! And he gets another 11-9. He can get another Terran.
Your flaws are your strength.
This deckhand is actually like very clutch right now. Bomb Wrangler are going to come down because, frankly, why not? There is no, playing into a brawl issues or anything along those lines. BoarControl will know what Zhym has and will know that that is a concede. And BoarControl takes game number one here against Zhym. But you can see already why those two decks are two of the most popular decks right now. They have game versus each other, as well as many other archetypes that are being played on ladder right now. And even that one was very, very close, going quite back and forth there.
Yeah, but I think very cleanly executed from BoarControl in the end. I think you could see if you were watching his webcam just how comfortable he looked for the last 3 or 4 turns. I think he had it all mapped out. He understood what he had to beat. He knew he was out of range of the damage plan, so therefore he knows his opponent, who is also a good Hearthstone player, would divert, and Tyrion was probably his only option in that point. So he sets up a 2 or 3 turn plan to be able to deal with that scenario as well. So very nicely executed from Boar throughout. But again, I think that matchup that you've just watched is a big reason why this deck, the No Hands Warrior, has even appeared on the scene. Is because that matchup is so strong for it, and it's so competitive against the other type of Demon Hunter as well, because you can compete on board against the aggro Demon Hunter, you can pressure the OTK Demon Hunter, and then against either of them, you can just gain 20 armor in a turn on basically on demand, essentially, with the way that the deck is built. So it's a fantastic matchup for it.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's a lot of other archetypes get caught in that kind of cone effect that the Warrior has, right? Those things it does versus Demon Hunter, well, token decks, it can beat up with the AoE Whirlwind effect and armor, and then slow decks, you can aggro them down. So you kind of, as well as it built for dealing with Demon Hunter as a class, you're still sweeping up a lot of other, archetypes you see on ladder as well with it. Going to get at least from my view, relatively zoomed in picture of that deck list there. So that's just a close look at the Demon Hunter list. But let's just take a quick mention to talk about, which we didn't so far, is the bans. Warlock, long gone for both players. And I'm actually a fan of this ban.
Why is that, Raven?
Because I feel like how Galakron Warlock is built right now is a very matter-of-fact deck where you have to either be X amount of healing plus removal, which is what all the deck is. It's just healing and ways to kill your stuff until you run out. Or you have to just go for it and hope they don't draw it. And I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but I feel like not having to just play against something like that is a bonus, especially with both players bringing Demon on, what Warlock is pretty much built for right now. But I just like the fact that, I don't know, right now Warlock's just they either out-heal you or you win, and it's just a very straightforward game plan, and I don't like playing stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I mean, most players in the Swiss seem to be on your line of thinking, because Warlock was far and away the most banned deck during the Swiss portion, banned 42 total times during the Swiss that led up to this point. So that is, even more than Demon Hunter, which wasn't even second most banned deck in the European region.
And I think when you look at the field as well, Warlock can have decent game versus Druid, in my opinion, as well, especially some of the lists that are running the extra AoE removal and, the Artificers as well. And again, with Warrior, you can out-heal the damage and remove the Warrior's pressure. So it's just a deck that I think is just built to counter all the sort of mid and aggro decks that are knocking around right now. But anyway, enough of that. Anyway. This is a spicy Demon Hunter mirror that is just the eye-beaming each other. It's just a staring contest right now.
Never mind. Nothing happened. Zhym was in trouble, and then he wasn't, because eye-beam appeared off the top. Now he's fine. And do you have a favourite in this, like, literal matchup? Not how these decks perform in general, but in this exact matchup? Do you lean either way here? I personally like the OTK version, just in the direct head-to-head a little bit more. I think just the lifesteal is too swingy a lot of the time, and the aggro Demon Hunter sort of is quite linear in what it's able to do. If it doesn't get the absolute nuts and you miss Immolation Aura, then you really don't take that much damage anyway, because your removal is very efficient at what they're trying to do. But that is the scenario we see now, where BoarControl has had a very aggressive opener, 1-drop into 1-drop into 3-drop, and Immolation Aura is not currently in hand for Zhym to be able to counter it. So Zhym will be taking a lot of damage here from the OTK side.
Yeah, he does have the Eldrachi Warblades he got off the top then, which is some kind of, recovery technique. Although that's one swing already done. This was nerfed from 3 durability to 2, so there is literally just one less swing than it used to have. Thank God, because that weapon was insane. But for now, Zhym is, I would say... Oh, there we go. Okay, never mind. I would say Zhym's doing quite well right now. But before that Immolation arrow was drawn, I think Zhym was like holding on. Especially when we can see the Skull and Altruis in hand. I think that was going to look a bit dicey for Zhym. But right now, I think this Skull has to do a lot of work for BoarControl, and it's even a whole turn away yet.
But that factor right there, and again, you probably could have cast this just by staring at Boar's face. The fact that Frenzied Fellwing is a 3/3 is so important to this deck. It's why, with zero knowledge, I would expect if a nerf is happening to Frenzied Fellwing, which Ixar kind of alluded to on Twitter, that making it a 3/2 would be the best way to do it based on how the current meta is forming up. Because if Demon Hunter just have another 2 health minion that they play alongside everything else,
right.
situations like that, it's fine. You just clear the board. The fact that it has 3 health and every deck in the meta right now is tuned to do 2 damage AoE to be able to counter Demon Hunter, that Frenzied Fellwing makes all the difference. In this case, it makes Zhym use up that last charge of the lifesteal weapon to be able to clear the 3/1 off the board. And now again, similar to the position in the last game, he doesn't have access to that big burst healing from Inner Demons alongside the Warblades to heal himself back up. He has to find his second Warblades if that's going to happen.
Right, and this is one of those tricky scenarios here where Zhym is trying to get to that Skull of Gul'dan as an outcast card, but he needs to do it somehow, and he needs the mana, and he's not getting there because he drew an Immolation Aura now. Then he's got to draw another card next turn, and although he has a coin, it's quite unlikely he gets there, which means he is a little bit on the back foot right now, because outside of the Immolation Aura, he doesn't have that much game in terms of actually dealing with the pressure BoarControl can put on. Whereas in the meanwhile, BoarControl did get a Skull of Gul'dan, and look at the mana cost of that hand and those 3 cards on the right.
And that card on the left as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget about that one. When you have a hand of cards that cost 0 or could potentially cost 0, what a card it is.
And for me, this is where just raw experience will kick in with this deck. For me, I would think, I'm just going to wait and then go off next turn. But there are drawbacks to that. One, he doesn't make this board, which is obviously fantastic, just more pressure and faster. But also, if he draws a very high mana cost card, as his card next turn, it could really mess up his Altruis turn.
Yeah, it could potentially be blocked from both sides to an extent. Like, playing it from the right-hand side can get awkward if you draw an expensive card, as you said, and then from the left-hand side, you have to pay 2 and then 1, which is already like the majority of your turn used up at that point.
And I really think you want the Blades of Azanoth equipped next turn, right? You want to use those charges up. You have 4 charges on that weapon, so you really want to get that equipped, and it is... Oh, well, okay, we'll have to wait and see again. I think he has to go, though, right? So there's so many different
card draw
plays.
messes with him, that's the problem.
But, so does he set it up maybe with Watcher then? This turn? To choose his next card? And then... maybe, okay, what if he... okay. What if he goes Watcher to set up, Warglaives of Azanoth, and I-Beam to actually kill the Kane, and then have the next turn set up, especially if he picks Twin Slice?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, personally. He could also just put another Sigil Runner on top of his deck and just chain them off this turn if he wants to go down that route.
But then you go...
also very possible.
But then you go more chance of... Because you keep drawing, you might... For me, you go in more deep into the... I've got a higher chance of drawing a bad card for the Outcast.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I just love the Twin Slice choice. If he did pick it, I didn't actually see it. Because you just guaranteed so many extra waves of Altruis. Oh, is he just gonna ignore the Kane and decide that's enough? Okay, I can get behind this.
It's fine.
He did set up the 2 sigils.
Yeah, this is what I liked.
Ooh,
This
yeah, I
makes
mean,
sense to me.
you got a good card as well there. So.
Okay, how much damage is this? Unknown, because Skull of Gul'dan is in his hand, so it's question mark. Good to know.
And I'm just going to watch this go, honestly, because this, as you just mentioned, this could be a lot, or this could be a very little. We'll see.
Yes. Chaos Strike is at 2, he's now at 4. He has 16 more in his hand, that's 20. Currently that is his limit. There's another Chaos Strike as well, 22. 23 from the hero power.
Can you get the meta plus hero power off? No. No, he can't. Right?
I mean, he's already out of spells before he does
yeah.
everything that I just said, so trying to add Metamorphosis in there as well is just not going to work. So nope. This is going to be about his limit this turn.
Ooh, and no mana for the I-Beam either. Even just the I-Beam could have made the world of difference this turn, just to heal. More than anything else. Zephyrus not active either, so can't get him anything too funky, like a sack pack to deal with that demon and heal up.
Yep.
So Zhym is going to have to trade. He does punch forward just a casual 14. But is it going to be enough? I think the answer to that question, Sottle, is a hard no, as Zhym sees the Altruis and knows that is going to be a game. And BoarControl moving up to a very swift 2-0 over Zhym. And I think there we really saw the effect of the Eldrazi Warblades nerf, of the 3 charge down to 2 charges. Imagine if Zhym had one more swing of that weapon. He probably just wins, honestly. Like, the game changes so much. He would have healed for, what, 14 that turn? Like, insane.
Yeah, it makes all the difference, because those first 2 charges that you use are normally just frantically expended on trying to control the board. Even back when it was a 3-charge weapon, it was that 3rd charge that you genuinely felt like, okay, this is surplus to requirements. I can hold on to this. I've got to the stage of the game now where I'm casting my Skull of Gul'dan and I'm doing all these broken things and I'm just dominating the board naturally, or being able to react to the board efficiently at least. So I can just hold on to this weapon to be able to lifesteal for 16, 20, whatever amount of damage I end up doing late in the game. When it goes down to 2 charges, it's a very different animal. But what that makes clear is that it's very, very important to pressure the OTK deck efficiently in the opening turns, so that if they do get the early Warblades, they are forced to use it in order to react to their minions. Otherwise, they're just going to take too much damage and die.
Yeah, and here's one of my questions as well is, I talked earlier about it, I think there's still a lot to come in terms of this meta and how decks are even built. I think a lot of the decks aren't built very well right now. Is there something along the lines of, I'm going to an extreme here, but do you play Doomsayers in the combo list? I don't know, but maybe you need better anti-aggro tools, or maybe more, depending on meta, to not have to use your big heal to kill a 2-1. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's just, it feels like such a waste that maybe you just play even more anti-aggro to not get smoked down. But let's move on to game number 3. BoarControl versus Zhym. BoarControl currently doing fantastic at a 2-0 lead, but here is kind of the outside the box deck choice, at least as far as I'm concerned, in the Highlander Rogue, which is very similar to pre-expansion versus Zhym's combo Demon Hunter.
Okay, glass half full or glass half empty. There is a Spectral Sight on each side of his hand, which is lovely, but those 2 opening hand inner demons are going to block his outcast potential pretty much every single turn after this one. Unless he's drawing outcasts directly off the top or very, very close to doing that, he's going to really struggle to get that going this game.
Yeah, and one thing you might actually see is Zhym will maybe even go for outcast off the top when it's not even as good. You know, like maybe he wouldn't normally, but because he knows he doesn't have it the other way, he just has to chain outcasts to go off there. He's going to start with a Chaos Strike on this Zephyrus, though, as BoarControl dropped it out nice and early to get that wild growth, and that does mean he can ramp up, and might look a little bit weird. Maybe people are used to getting semi-smoked down by Rogue in the past, but with this Highlander list, BoarControl is more than happy to get to that max mana, especially considering his hand right now.
Yeah, so I'm just going to take a look at the exact makeup of this list, because of course Highlander Rogue, nature of a Highlander deck, you could build it a lot of different ways. There is a sprinkling of the secret package in there. It does so he can activate cards like Blackjack Stunner, for example, just a sap on legs for 1 mana, essentially. Extremely powerful card. So he is playing just sprinkling of secrets to be able to activate cards like that. otherwise looks fairly similar to the kind of Highlander Road builds we were seeing in the previous metagame, and a couple of other new cards in there as well, like the Overconfident Orc that you are seeing currently.
There is one card I very much like the look of in here, which is the Waste Warden. I did wonder if this was going to see play. Is the deal 3 to a type of card, if that makes sense. Do you know that one, the deal 3?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I'm with you.
Okay, it's so tough you not being here. I can't even see you right now, Saul. It hurts. I think I might stick a picture of your face like over my camera, so I can just like kind of look at you while I talk.
Sorry, you don't have that already?
No, I know my printer broke.
Oh, I'll take mine down then.
Okay.
I don't want to be this one-sided relationship.
But
by that I mean my picture of me over my own webcam.
Yes, it's just a mirror.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting that he can hit demons basically against a demon hunter, but maybe less so against the combo variant that isn't as reliant on this board focus pressure.
All right, I think we're fairly firmly in glass half full territory now because Zhym has drawn incredibly effectively off the top on the right hand side of his hand up until this point.
This is where in like 3 turns time, if he just rips the Kel'Thas and Altruis, the game just ends. Like, because it's like double twin slice, the Eldrachi Warblades are there, the 2 in a demon, sorry. The game will just end at some point, but it's all on BoarControl to make it work, but BoarControl's hand is terrible right now.
Is it?
Well, I feel... Okay. If we're starting at 6 and 7 mana, the hand looks good. But for me, I feel like every turn he plays, say, one of these cards, it's clunky and slow. It's like, oh, I played a dude. And then Zhym's turn is, I draw my deck. You know what I mean? I feel like Zhym is doing way more with each turn than BoarControl can do with this hand.
So what if Boar was to just Divine Shield Wind Furious see him out right now?
Well, we're about to find out. Is my answer to that.
There's Divine Shield and there's Wind Fury.
There we go. Well, let's see. It's definitely the most threatening turn and the best minion out of his choice, of course. But if this gets cleaned up, I feel like Zhym is just in such a good spot. He's pretty much just the one draw away, isn't he?
Yep. But again, does still have 13 cards remaining in his deck, and at some point this hand will get clunky. I mean, I think it just has this turn, essentially.
This was nice, though. This was nice.
This was a decent turn, yeah, but he's not, smoothly drawing cards through his deck every single turn, which is what you're trying to be doing with the Outcast mechanic. Those 2 inner demons on the left are going to be a problem unless he draws Kel'Thas very soon.
And thankfully, there is a hand limit size in this game, because if not, it would be insane. You just can literally draw all the deck. And truly OTK someone. But looking at BoarControl's side
here, just need to generate the Warlock card that gives you 4 extra hand space.
Exactly, yeah.
Somehow, that'd be fine.
That's the play. But this is kind of what I mean, right? Like, yes, the CM out was a good play, but it was cleaned up. But now BoarControl will, if he plays Kronks, then great, but it's not. It's a 6/6. Do you know what I mean? Like, then it's a whole nother turn till Galakrond is drawn, and BoarControl is probably just hoping against hope that Kel'Thas just is not there yet, and maybe at the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I sort of questioned, like, is this... Oh, never mind. The reason I sort of questioned, like, is this a particularly bad hand for Boar is that it's just a big chunky thing that he can play every turn for quite some time, which is actually what this deck struggles to remove on the Demon Hunter side, right? Like, you don't really want to be playing, like, small tokens everywhere.
Yeah, I definitely see your point. I think may have cast a vision this and just saw the Eldrachi Warblades and just gone, well, okay, you hit me twice with 2 big chunky guys or whatever, then I just heal to full and you're dead. You know that kind of overall mindset. If there was just any form of earlier pressure from BoarControl, I think this would be insane for him right now. But I think the turns that Zhym was kind of given to just do whatever may be enough for him to win this game. But suddenly, Galakrond, Shadowstep, there is an Eviscerate there, and some lackeys as well with the Evil Miscreant. There is stuff BoarControl can do. Has gone for the Alexstrasza.
If he doesn't find defense here, he is dead.
Got Taunt. You got Bone Dragon Taunt, man. And I'm sorry, I've even been playing Priest today. Don't even know that card. But he did get, funnily enough, the Demon Hunter Demon Dragon, which does summon minions of mana cost equal to minions that have died while it's there. That's what it does, right?
Sure, I didn't understand any of the words you just said.
Look, summon 2 random 0-cost minions.
The upgrade is yeah.
Skeletal Dragon. It wasn't even a complicated name.
But I believe still now with the consume magic that Zhym gets over the line here. Alright. Kalthas, double Twin Slice, double Inner Demon, and then...
the silence is the kicker there.
Out the way. Yep.
Without the Altruis or a Kane, maybe, the silence was much needed there. Would have been a little bit harder. And it meant that Zhym would have to have taken an extra turn to maybe set up. But, as always, you can cast this game of Hearthstone by just watching BoarControl's camera, as he knows he is extremely dead.
So yeah, final verdict, glass very much half full for Zhym, as if you're going to draw Kalthas in the exact timely manner before those inner demons start to get awkward on the left-hand side of your hand, and you just end up using them to kill your opponent. And everything is smelling of roses.
It really did fall into place there, didn't it? And especially just the best card to activate Kalthas, the Twin Slice, right? It's one card, proc a free spell from Kalthas, and he had 2 of them just before he drew. It was huge there for Zhym, and he does get a win on the board with that combo Demon Hunter, but there's plenty more to go. But my question, I guess, again, is this Galakron... is this Highlander, Galakron, whatever rogue, good enough to keep up with some of the newer lists? Like, has this rogue got game versus Druid? Like, I don't know, because I've honestly just not played that list that much, but I just wonder what it even does if Druid just makes the 2/2s on turn 5. You know, like, what does it do?
The answer is flick, as long as they're not that far ahead of you on ramp, right? Like, ideally, they can get there before you have access to that mana to be able to do it, but it functions pretty much the same as a 2-ofs rogue in that matchup, where flick is really your go-to card, and otherwise, you're trying to do like a backstab SI7, trade a couple just to kill enough on board in that situation.
And I guess as well as we just, take more of this list in from BoarControl and we see the dirty tricks there, he is actually playing the Shadow Jeweler Hanar, which means he can actually discover, flame wards and explosive traps and stuff. So there are ways in which he can get there, but that is a if, what, and where and when kind of question as opposed to a consistent plan.
Yeah, and also, like, how realistic is it that on the turn where the Druid, who has a bunch of mana gain spells in their deck, pops off and makes a board, which they do very early, how realistic is it that you have enough mana to play Shadow Jeweler, then play a Secret, then generate a Flame Ward, and then play a Flame Ward afterwards? Like, that's a lot of mana to be spending.
It really is, yeah. And if you've maybe just tuned in, not really played too much on Ladder or seen a lot of Druid, they got some mana. Because they have a new card, which is 4 mana, that ramps them 2 mana crystals, which means they can go all the way up to mainly 7+, very, very, very quickly indeed. So far now, not the cards that Zhym really wants to see here, early on, at least. But still, he does have a Wrath for any emergency, like, early minion pressure from BoarControl. But other than that, it's kind of just taking it slow for now.
Yep. Pretty slow looking hand. Does have the Glowfly Swarm, but no way to ramp into it right now.
Ooh, this list as well, it has 1 Wild Growth, 1 Soul of the Forest, which we've discussed, subtle.
We have.
Offcast. Dislike, by the way. 1 Gift of the Wild, and 1 Forest Aid, 1 Mount Seller, 1 Wrath.
Oh, you're saying the number 1 far too many times for my liking, Raven.
Yeah. At least I'm only telling you and not showing you the list, because...
Well, I've just pulled it up myself.
Oh, there we go.
Yep, I am... Yep,
you're in pain,
I'm going to throw all of my toys out of my pram, and I quit. I'll see you next week.
Okay, so solo cast it is. I wonder if, like, Derek's still around or something. just give him a shout, get in here. But yeah, so... It does mean that everything is a little bit more, for want of a technical term, wishy-washy in this list from Zhym. But as long as he can get a board and stick it just once, I would say he has a very good game versus BoarControl here.
Yeah. What I will say is, so playing one-offs of cards introduces inconsistency, right? What then increases consistency is being able to draw a ton of cards. And this deck absolutely can draw a ton of cards. So I think playing a bunch of one-offs is much more forgivable in a deck that gets to the bottom of its deck very, very quickly, because then you're more reasonably expected to find them. In the meanwhile, that exact setup was found. Boar would not have had the mana to be able to answer that setup if it was not for the Escape Mana Saber that he was able to develop on turn 4, which has now ramped him into that flick turn just a little bit more. He's actually going to Shadow Step it as opposed to keeping it in play for the pressure. So he's definitely setting his stall out for the long game here to be able to nuke multiple waves of these boards that, of course, all are generated as the same minion, no matter what the Druid does, really, outside of Exotic Mount Seller.
Yeah, and I like this. The pressure would have been nice because I feel like BoarControl has opened a window for himself with that first flick. But I like this, not only because, one, it's a good play with the Shadow Step, but two, BoarControl's basically just said, go on, Zhym. Go on. Play some more flies. You know, because you know they're already dead. So if you spend mana on it, they're dead. They don't exist. So then, if I was Zhym right now, I'd sat there going, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Because you know the first wave is dead, and then I'm dead. You know, and then that's just the game. So the play was just very straightforward, but extremely effective.
So I think the way to look at it, if you're Zhym here, is the next board I make makes my opponent spend 4 mana. Right?
Okay,
like
sure.
It just saps 4 mana out of their hand. So you need to find a turn where that's a thing that you can leverage, where the fact that they are forced to spend 4 on that flick is something that you can potentially get away with.
Bog Beam here. Nice that you can cast a usable card and not just like a random innovate. So he can free up some space in hand. But it doesn't do anything, which is very frustrating for Zhym, no doubt. But I do feel he needs to freeze something up. Maybe he frees an innovate, I don't know. He has to really look at this Mount Seller and see if it really does something for him. Because for me personally, Saul, I know we spoke about this, but Mount Seller, I feel, is a bit out there. I feel like you could just build a better list and not rely on the Mount Seller.
Well, why don't you build a better list, Raven?
Because it's not my job to build lists, Saul. It's my job to try and not sound stupid whilst talking about lists.
Well, why aren't you better at that job?
Look, I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm rusty.
Alright. We are all, like, incredibly rusty. It's incredible, like, how hard this gets when you haven't done it.
Overflow, not the worst card at all to burn, to be honest. That was actually probably perfect.
Title of your you-know-what, by the way.
I was right there with you before you even said it.
Yeah.
Oh, see? Mount Seller's trash!
Yeah, before the Zigsaw comes out the next one. Oh,
see?
come on!
Mount Seller's trash!
Alright, Mount Seller, you and I are going to have a word. You can't be validating this man like this, okay? We're early on in the season. The more
Mount
you pay him
trash.
off in his absurd ramblings, the more and more confident he gets. And my job is to undermine his confidence, okay? Thank you, that's better. Much, much better. See, my talk worked.
It did, and honestly, I love Zigsaw as a card, so I'm not even that upset. I'm okay with it.
But so now, like I said, the Mount Seller board is the flick-resistant board that Zhym is able to create.
Yeah. And there is a lot of pressure here because the deck, although, as you know, alluding to what you said earlier, Saul, it runs one-ofs, Savage Roar being probably the most common one-of in any of these type of Druid lists, but you draw it most of the time. So it is there as a almost constant threat for BoarControl. He has to count Savage Roar damage every turn. There might be, and there's very likely to be points where it's like, well, I can't play around it, so whatever, but you still have to make sure, you know, okay, if he has Savage Roar, can I play around it?
Right. Boar is not far off lethal here. It's just, A, he's a little bit short on damage, and B, he's a little bit short on mana to be able to efficiently punch through both of these taunts. It would involve using the flick if he does want to push and be aggressive, which really does signify very heavily that he is pushing for lethal here if he wants to do that.
Does Waste Warden do work here?
Well, they're all beasts.
Yeah, and most of them have 3 or less health. It does 3, right? I'm not making that up. I haven't actually sat and played this card a lot.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
With the power of Google, Raven.
No, with the power of watching BoarControl do it. Yes, it is. Yeah, okay.
Slight
Yeah.
damage.
I was 99%, but come on. Good effort there. BoarControl does get the Bone Wraith out as well, which means he does have some form of defense. And not that he's in massive health trouble right now, especially with that mostly clear, but you still want to just not take 7.
Yeah, there is...
Oof.
Ooh, goodbye, Zigsaw Prime. There is just a Mount Seller that's alive on the board right now. I'm sure Boar is not overjoyed with that fact. He still hasn't loaded up enough damage on the board to where he's immediately threatening lethal if a reasonable amount of this gets cleared out. Although I guess just with the weapon, it doesn't have... This is the 2-1.
It's a dagger, yeah, it's a dagger.
Yeah.
And
So
here,
he doesn't have
though...
enough damage loaded up to just be able to flick through the taunt and push lethal.
Right.
So this might just be slipping away from Boar a little bit. He's just missing all of those key breakpoints that he'd need to find a win condition for himself.
And even right now, Zhym with the access to the Soul of the Forest if he wants to, even after this Wild Growth. Oof, one of my favourite cards from the expansion. I love that little spiky boy. But the Soul of the Forest being active now as well means that there's almost nothing BoarControl can do about outside of very, very, very niche circumstances.
He's just recycling his hair into a Zigsaw.
That's 2 more Zigsaws. That's insane.
Yeah. And that is it. Zhym has this board for the rest of the game. This is not going away. So Boar needs to find a way just to straight up get lethal.
There is a sap now. It's not sap,
Well,
but you know what I mean.
Yes, it's a sap. It's a sap / freezing trap.
Freezing sap.
Yes. But he did already have the ability to punch through with the flick anyway. The thing he's missing is just the straight up damage that he needs to end the game.
This does mean in some worlds, if you can clear the board, the flick actually clears all the treants. So it means you can do it the better way round, so to speak.
Yep.
So there is there is a reason to do it this way and not just, oh, okay, I'll just play flick because whatever.
Oh yeah. Having drawn the Blackjack Stunner, that was absolutely the better card to use in the situation, for sure.
Can Boar navigate this? And how many turns do you think Boar thinks he has, right? Like, what, 2 turns? Like, next turn, maybe 1 more?
2 at most, yeah. I think
it's not a lot of time.
That would be hopelessly optimistic.
And we all know you, Sottle. Not hopelessly optimistic at all. Backstab not really going to do too much now, and it's probably better saved, I think. Does backstabbing the 2-2 really change that much? I don't think so.
Changes how much has to be thrown into your minions to kill them if Zhym is forced to just end up killing minions here, but yeah, I really don't think it's a big deal.
Oh, well, okay. Not all the cheap spells have pretty much been played for Zhym now, as in all the 0 mana. There's, I've not kept track of exactly each one, but Moonfire, Innovate, is it called Bog Blast? Okay, I didn't know. Look, whenever I have to start a question with, is this spell called Bog anything, I have to check. Because if you're from the UK, you'll understand.
It's just not funny to anyone else from any other country. To us, it's hilarious.
Yeah, oh, okay. That's not a bad one. It's only 6 damage here pushed through, which is really not a lot. He's going to go for the Kalthas now. What?
It's Bog Beam, by the way.
Oh, Bog Beam, okay. So when you said
I was
yes,
just hoping
you just
you'd
lied.
like dig yourself a tunnel.
Oh, no.
Going down the Bog Blast, you know. Just me. Fine.
Ooh.
Can't discount it though.
No, yeah, I was going to say one more playable spell, and that the game would have just ended right there and then.
Oh, baby!
Oh, Zhym cannot believe
Thank you for the fireball.
It's just gonna be game. Was that the only card that realistically got BoarControl out of this mess? I think it was.
So I don't know, if he had his Eviscerate left, in which case he had, like, generate lackey, shoot lackey, eviscerate as an out at various points. But yeah, I think Zephyrus was the card he was playing to. I think that's why you end up playing so defensive in that position as opposed to just pushing through in the end, because you do always have that Zephyrus out available to you. And so when we're talking about like how many turns can he buy, and we said, well, 2 probably. Like if he can play defensively enough to find a way to generate that 3rd turn for himself, then that's, you know, a whole extra turn that you could use to find one of those outs, and it ended up being that Zephyrus off the top that ends the game.
Yeah, and a very interesting game overall. That's definitely one I'm going to go back and watch, because it's easy to say now, but was there a point where Zhym could have maybe held a Moonfire? Or held a 0 mana card? His hand was very full a lot of the time, so he probably had to empty something. But it's just one of those games where you just wonder, like, Moonfire is just 0 mana deal 1. It doesn't normally have a massive impact in a game apart from proccing Kel'Thas, right? So I always just wonder whether there's anything that he could do. So very interesting game, but BoarControl takes it, and not only did he win the Swiss portion of this week, he has won his first match and moving on to the upper side of his group, which is a fantastic result for him, and he'll be looking to take it all the way and get as many points to start off his Grandmaster season this time as possible. But for now, we're going to go to a short break while we get the next match ready, so don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back with more Grandmasters.